Welcome, students. We are now getting into chapter 2 in your practice management for the veterinary team textbook. We are covering the leadership team. With that being said, we'll get started. So before we get into more about leadership, who is a leader? What does it take to be a leader? We need to discuss the team. A team in veterinary medicine, that's usually what we call our whole staff member group. We're a team, we work together. It's very true. So in a veterinary hospital, you're going to have your doctors, you're going to have your technicians, you're going to have your assistants, you're going to have your kennel assistants, and you're going to have your receptionist, management team, possibly HR or hospital admin. So you've got quite a few different people that work in your team. Be aware that all of these different team members contribute at least one exceptional skill to the team. So everybody contributes in different ways, and you will see that everyone is going to have different strengths and weaknesses. This is where that leveraging is going to come in. So each team member, along with their skill set, will also present new or different ideas. People can have new and different ideas from one another and be more creative in certain ways than others, with that brainstorming and problem solving. Having that good team environment also allows the practice to obtain their goals. And it challenges. Having challenges for them, for your employees, helps stimulate team members. It gets team members excited. It gets team members wanting to learn more and wanting to achieve more. But this all stems, a good team is always behind a good leader. So today we are going to be talking all about leadership. What is a leader? What makes a good leader? How can you become a leader or a better leader? And how do they impact the field of veterinary medicine? So let me make this very clear before we start talking about leaders. A leader is not a manager, and a manager is not necessarily a leader. You can be, but that doesn't mean that you are. And let me explain that. A manager is somebody who manages a team. They schedule the team, they do payroll for the team, they do all of the bookkeeping and making sure that everything's all good. Managerial duties. Management duties are what I would call a hard skill. That is a skill that I can teach you. I can teach you how to manage employees. I can teach you how to do scheduling. I can teach you how to interview somebody. I can teach you how to enter payroll and submit that. Those are all skills that I can teach you. That's what's called what we say a hard skill. Okay, anybody can be a manager, but not everyone can be a leader. And the reason that I say this is because a leader is somebody who has soft skills. I can't teach you soft skills. I can encourage you and give you advice and information on it. And, your lab instructors can have you do activities to help build those skills. But ultimately, soft skills, I'm talking about your emotional intelligence. I'm talking about who you are as a person, how you deal with conflict, how you deal with your own emotions, how much awareness you have. I can't teach you that. Now, that's a personal thing that you develop over time and over your life. Some people are born with more self-awareness than others. Some people have to learn and go through a lot of trivial and trial to get to a point where they're a good leader. Other people, they're a little bit more natural born leaders. And it's okay to be at either side of that fence. Again, I can't teach you soft skills. I can't teach you how to be a good person. But you can change at any point in your life, and you can decide to make the decision to act like a leader and to model that way and to have the emotional intelligence that a leader has. So let's go into a little bit more. And this is where we have a lot of disconnect here. A manager, if they are not a good leader, can break a team. Vice versa. A manager that's a fantastic leader can make that team and make it be as successful as they are. So your management ideally, should be people who have good leadership traits and qualities. So what do leaders do? Well, they strive to obtain short-term and long-term goals. They're always striving to do better and achieve more. Leaders, again, they're very emotional intelligent. They have high emotional intelligence. They're very self-aware of themselves, but also others. So they're going to be able to recognize things like strengths and weaknesses of each team member. They're going to be able to motivate people. They're enthusiastic. They lead by example. A good leader is somebody that you look at and you go, I want to be like you when I grow up. You know, man, this person's incredible. I want to be just like them. That's leading by example. Man, they do such a good job. I want to do just as well as they do. But remember, these skills, they're developed with practice, with time, and with continuous education. Nobody just wakes up and is a perfect leader. You can have more predominantly of those skills. Maybe you were raised in an environment that challenged you in that way. It takes practice. It takes time. I worked in the field for a very long time, from 2011 up until 2021, 10 years. I worked in the field before I was a teacher. Long time. I've been teaching for about 4 years now. It took a long of practice and time and continuous education for me to get into a leadership role, even though I had already had most of those traits. It takes time, takes experience. I still needed to be humbled. Now, that being said, leadership requires a few things. You have to have good human skills. You have to be a good communicator. You have to be a good active listener. You have to be good at talking with others, being empathetic, giving advice, being a people person. You also have to have good technical skills. You have to be good at the job. You have to understand the business and the business model and how it's ran. You also have to have conceptual skills. Are you able to be a problem solver? Are you able to look at new things and come up with new ideas and be innovative? All of those things tie into leadership. So what are some qualities? What are some traits that exceptional leaders have? Personal traits. Again, I can encourage you to have these traits. I can encourage you to act these ways and to model that way. But this comes from within. This comes from who you are as a person and how you choose to act. So an exceptional leader, they're going to be really confident. They're going to be very confident in themselves and with the job that they're doing and their team. They're going to be a really sincere person. They're not going to seem fake or like they don't care. They're going to feel, this is a real person. They're really sincere. They really care about me and this team and what they're doing. You're going to be able to feel that. They're also going to be enthusiastic. They're going to know how to motivate their team and get people ready and get people excited. A good leader should also be organized. And organization meaning they should be able to organize things within their company to promote that success. They should also be somebody who is keen to diversity, who has worked in many different places, situations, and understands of a lot of those different diverse, especially employment situations, especially situations of vet med. And we'll talk a little bit more about diversity and really the diversity that we look at in vet med specifically for this field and the challenges that we can face with that. A good leader is a team player. They're not just leading their team, they're also helping their team every step of the way. A leader is not a dictator. A leader is a team player. And they're also a problem solver. They're going to help resolve any conflicts that happen. they're also going to be a good listener. They're going to have effective communication skills. They're not going to be talking over you and interrupting you and not letting you speak. They're going to have that control to be able to control themselves during that conversation, during those conversations. Somebody who's an exceptional leader will be innovative. They'll think of new ideas and ways to improve, but they're also going to be renovating, which means that they're going to look at how to improve certain things and make it better, fix things. The biggest thing here is being able to admit their mistakes. Okay, nobody's perfect. Even the best leader out there is going to make a mistake at some point. But the best leader is going to be able to take a step back and go, I made a mistake. I slipped up and this is what happened. And they're going to be able to be really honest about it and truthful. Good leaders don't blame their team either. Just because the team had a slip up, hey, if your team messed up, you messed up too as a leader. You take responsibility for that. And you don't point the finger and blame other people. Some of the best leaders that I've ever come into contact with were leaders that could say, hey, I failed you as a leader, or maybe my direction is the reason why my team messed up. That's a huge indicator of emotional intelligence. Are you somebody that points the finger, or are you somebody that looks within and can reflect and go, this is what I did wrong. This is what contributed to that or could have. So let's talk about it. I've been saying this word over and over and over, emotional intelligence. This is the ability to identify, assess, and control your own emotions, which not a lot of people do very well anymore. We're definitely lacking with the people, especially some of the younger generations coming up, with exceptional and good leaders. I love technology. I love this new age of tech, and I love having, I think social media is such a cool tool, and you can reach such a huge bandwidth of people, and it's amazing. One of the things, though, that I'm happy that I didn't grow up with it. I'm happy that I didn't grow up with a lot of technology because it would change who I am today. I was forced to talk to people and deal with things, and oh my gosh, had to face a lot of situations head on. Nowadays with there's social media and phones and cyberbullying, a lot of people will say whatever they feel like saying to whoever's willing to listen. A lot of these influencers, people that go on social media, bash other people, it is a indicator of low emotional intelligence. You shouldn't feel the need to have to do that all the time. Somebody who has high emotional intelligence is, even if they're wronged, okay, even if like they are due to be able to to defend themselves, this and that, a lot of really great leaders, they're going to control those emotions instead of reacting and getting reactive and upset and just really letting those emotions fly. They're going to be able to say, how I react to this situation will determine how the solution will happen. Because guess what? If you're able to control your emotions effectively, it will have a positive effect on others. If somebody is just, let's say I had a client who was just really upset, who was yelling and just upset about, maybe they were upset about a price on something that we had. If I react to that client, maybe this client's being really rude to me. Y'all, humans are rude. Humans can be really mean to other humans, and over something that probably has nothing to do with you. I've had clients, call me names and say, how dare you work in a field like this? You don't even care about my animal. And let me tell you this, if I were to react poorly and be like, I do care. I care a lot. You're the one that doesn't care because you can't afford it. Y'all, what is that doing to this situation? It's escalating it. That client is going to pop off and you could lose your job. Yeah, it's adding fuel to the fire. Exactly. It's not doing any positive. Who is that doing positive for? You might feel better because you feel like you defended yourself or whatnot, but not really, because you're going to get backlash for it later. So with a client like that, having that higher emotional intelligence, how I would react to the situation, I'm really I apologize that you are upset about the pricing. I understand that this is a decent amount of money that we're asking to do these procedures. This is what I can offer. We have care credit, and somebody can help you apply for that. You can go home and think on this estimate and make another appointment. We can come back and discuss it more. We can do a partial plan where we just do some of these treatments instead of all of them. Do you see what I did there? I gave solutions. That person was having a hard time, didn't know how to process anything. And instead of me being reactive, the person wasn't mad at me. They were upset with the situation, had nothing to do with me. But because I was able to be calm and explain to them the options that they have in a way that was understanding and not judgmental, that client, if they keep yelling at me, who's going to look like the bigger fool here? You can't you can't argue with somebody that's not arguing back. You know what I mean? You can't. If somebody's, popping off, getting mad, and you're just trying to be as mellow and solve the problems, it's going to affect how that person reacts to you. It's going to affect how that conversation will go. And I'm not telling you to take abuse from clients. If somebody is harassing you in that way, verbally harassing you, call for backup, like get your manager, get some help, especially if you don't know how to handle the situation. But it will happen. It happens a lot. And again, you have to recognize this in yourself. Having self-awareness, being aware of your emotions and how you're feeling is very important, but also being able to control those emotions. Just because I'm upset because the client was being super rude to me doesn't mean that I need to flip that back to them. It will do no good for this situation. So yeah, I'm aware, I'm upset. This person is being rude to me, but I'm going to have the control to not lash out at them. And I'm actually going to show empathy instead. I understand that these can cost a lot. I get it. If I were to have a bill like this, I'd probably be in the same situation as you. But here's some options that we have. Would you like to talk about it more? Do you want to take some time to think about it? Listen to the tone of my voice. Little changes like that with how you talk to people and just showing a little bit of empathy will change the direction of the conversation. And that makes a great leader. Also, being self-motivated. Can you motivate yourself? Can you motivate yourself to improve and to be better and communicate better? But again, it comes down to soft skills. These are all soft skills here that you grow up with and you learn over time. And as an adult, you may find yourself changing and striving to be better, especially if you're trying to get into a management position. Or think about it this way. Would you want to work with a doctor that had low emotional intelligence, that just popped off and got mad all the time and insulted their employees because you weren't working fast enough? I wouldn't. That sounds like a not great time to me, right? I want to work with the doctor. I want to work with people that have emotional intelligence, that are empathetic, that do care, that are aware, that have those big feelings just like I do. It's really important. And again, things to reflect on, and reflect on it with yourself. Where are you at in that journey? How do you react to people? And maybe it's different in your personal life versus your professional life, and that's okay. But take some time to reflect on that. And remember, you can always improve these skills. I can tell you that when I first started in the field back in 2011, I was not the same person that I am today. I did not have the emotional intelligence like I do today at all. I had to learn a lot. So again, you can become a better leader. You can become that person that is a better employee to work at a company, that's better to work around other people, that clients really enjoy. And these are small changes that you can make every day. Work on it every single day. Strive for excellence. Be open to learning new things. Model the way that you want to be, right? You want to be that understanding person. You want to have high emotional intelligence. You want to be a good leader. Then model it. Then act that way, right? Don't just don't just talk the talk, but walk the walk. You want to improve your team morale. If you are happy and you are working well, you have a good vibe with you, you're just overall really great attitude, great person to work with. Guess what? Other people feed off of that. They also feed off of negativity. If you're just a drag and it's hard to be around and you don't have the best attitude, yeah, people around you, they will feed off of that. It is contagious, those behaviors. So smile, be friendly, be a good communicator, be a good human. And I don't mean smile like, come on, smile now. I mean smile because people can tell when you're smiling. Did you take a time to think about that? Have you ever thought about that? When you're on the phone with somebody, you can't see their face, right? But guarantee you can tell when you're on the phone with somebody, you can tell if they're smiling or giggling or laughing. It's just a change in their voice, change in their tone. You can absolutely tell. Back when we were wearing masks in the pandemic, it's like, just remember to smile, just remember to try to, because it was hard you couldn't see smiling through the mask. You had to learn how to communicate a little bit differently. But just know a smile can go a long way. Checking a client in and, hi, welcome to ABC Veterinary Clinic. My name is Shane. I'll be your assistant today. Let's get Fluffy moved right back on into the exam room. Did you notice how my voice changed when I smiled? It got brighter. It got more enthusiastic. It was really welcoming. Take note of that. You can also become a better leader by inspiring the vision and trust of a company. And we're going to get into mission, vision, and value statements and talk a little bit more about how you can find out what that is for your clinic and determine what's a good fit for you. We will address that later on in this lecture. Something that's also important, becoming a better leader, is embracing suggestions. Good leaders can take feedback, positive or negative. And they're going to be able to control their emotions about it and take the feedback well. You're not always going to get good feedback. People will give you suggestions to improve things. If you're able to embrace those suggestions and work hard to improve them, that is a sign of a really great leader. Not gossiping. This should go without saying, but it's true. If you're a leader, you shouldn't be whispering and gossiping about other people, especially to your staff members. If there's an issue, you resolve it. As an employee, if you have an issue with somebody, the best thing that you can do is bring it up with that person if you feel comfortable. If you don't, then go to your manager. Do not go and talk to other people and start this gossiping train. It doesn't do any good. In fact, it's a lot of high school behavior, if you ask me. High school behavior, it's really immature. It shows that you have low emotional intelligence. And it's really bad for team morale. It creates like a really cliquey, again, I refer to like that high school kind of cliquey environment. I've only ever worked at one clinic that was like that. And it was very clear within the first few months of me being there that I was not going to fit in because I was not somebody that was going to engage in activity like that. I'm not here to talk down about people. I'm here to lift people up, even as just an employee. Because I would want somebody to do the same to me. Now, providing motivation, motivating others. If you're an inspiration, you motivate others, it's going to enable other people to act and other people to want to be the same way that you are. You're inspiring people as you go along. Now, you might notice where maybe you are what would be called a situational leader. And I'm sure many of you have felt this before. I would kind of put it into like three different categories. You're either a leader, a situational leader, or you're more of a follower. And it's totally okay wherever you fall in those categories. But it's where I tend to see that people end up most. And situational tends to be the most common one. Situational leadership means that you can recognize and adapt to the situation and lead it more effectively. So, for example, maybe you are really good at blood draws. You're really good at drawing blood, jugular blood draws, cephalic or saphenous. Maybe you're just really good at blood draws, okay? So you feel really comfortable teaching other people about blood draws because you yourself have confidence in it. You feel good about it. You know it's a good skill that you have. So you could be a situational leader where if you have knowledge of the subject, you are completely fine with leading that and leading people and teaching people and used in a directive sense to lead team members who have less skill, right? You're highly skilled in that area, so you are able to lead team members that don't have high skill in that area. It could also be supportive, which is used to lead team members with high skill level and prevent micromanagement. So again, know that it's really common to be in one of those places where you're like, well, I'm not necessarily a leader all the time, but I'm also not necessarily a follower. Like if I feel good about it, then I will situationally lead. A lot of people are in that place. Regardless, even if you're somebody that's more of a follower, you absolutely can get to the point where you are the one leading, whether situationally or all the time. And the difference between a leader versus a situational leader, a leader can take on any situation and can lead it. Whether they have knowledge in it or not, they have enough confidence in themselves where they're going to figure it out and they're still going to be able to lead and manage their team really well. And that comes with time, that comes with practice, that comes with experience and doing it more often. Okay, before we get into this next slide here, I'm going to pause the recording and we are going to go on a break. Okay, everybody, welcome back from the break. Let's get back into our chapter 2 leadership PowerPoint. We were just going over kind of the skills and things needed to be a leader, what it's like to be a situational leader. Let's talk a little bit about the leadership challenge. So, what do leaders do? How do they challenge the way? It's said this in your textbook that leaders kind of challenge the status quo. And when somebody challenges the status quo, essentially why we do things the way that we do, when we challenge that, it leads to things like innovation, and that's when changes are needed. So a good leader is somebody that's able to say, hey, you know, the way that we're doing this, it might work, but maybe there's a more efficient way to do it. They can generate ideas and follow through with that. That's how we get those advancements. Leadership always challenges people to act as well, right? If a good leader is inspirational and they do all the things, again, it says it here, models the way, they walk the walk, they don't just talk the talk. It will enable other people to act, right? That's inspirational. If they see you being that way and putting that much work into the job, they are going to act the same way. It empowers people and it also empowers collaboration, working with one another in the team. Leaders will also provide encouragement. Leaders encourage team members through recognition of their accomplishments. So recognizing that they had accomplishments and giving praise for those things when needed, that's huge. And they create inspiration. They inspire their team to do better. And in the field of veterinary medicine, we're looking things at like sharing a vision or even the values and the mission. So that, if you have that shared vision of where the company wants to be and where you want to be, it's much easier to get people to kind of buy into the values and the mission statement. So let's break that down. Let's break down, what is the mission, vision, and values statement? What is that? Why do you need to know about that? And every practice will have a set of these, what we would call core competencies. So what the mission, vision, and values statement do is they set structure, they create positive culture, and it helps the team understand what the goals of that hospital are. So things like values, those are guiding principles. Think about your values, your morals, your standards. From those values, there's a mission statement. That's the purpose of the hospital. What is the reason that they're there? What is the purpose? What are they trying to accomplish? And the vision is, what is the desired future of the practice? What are they trying to do? Where are they trying to go? What is the future for this business? So when you go through the interview process, I recommend that you look at what the mission, vision, and values statement are. And do you line up with those values? Do you have the same guiding principles? Do you care about their mission statement and what they're trying to do? And would you contribute positively to their vision? And you're going to see this implemented in departments like human resources. Because again, mission, vision, values, you want to make sure that you line up with the clinic. And you also want to make sure that again, everybody meshes well. We want to make sure that we're hiring somebody that fits to these goals of the practice. And asking questions like, what kind of training is needed to achieve the goals of the practice? What kind of people do we need working here? Marketing, the marketing team will also look at this, and be aware that depending on what kind of scale of hospital you work in, if you work in a corporate clinic, like you work for Ethos or you work for Banfield or VCA, those are all big corporate clinics. They have hundreds of them across the United States. Well, VCAs have hundreds. I don't know about how many Ethos has, but they've got a lot of locations. And Banfield, they're out of like Petco and PetSmart, so they have a lot. So when we're looking at corporate clinics, they will have separate departments. They will have human resources, and human resources, they are who hires people. They do job fairs, they post the jobs on listing sites, they do the interviews, they select the candidates, they select the rate of pay, they do employment evaluations. That is who a human services or human resources representative is. Marketing is somebody who's going to try to market the company and improve business by marketing tactics, and finance is supporting financial goals. So in a corporate clinic, you will have people that are in those different departments. But if you work for a mom and pop clinic, or essentially I'm talking about privately owned clinics, if you work for a privately owned clinic, they more than likely will have a manager who does all of these job responsibilities. They do the responsibilities of human resources and hiring and monitoring the employees. They also do the marketing for the clinic, and maybe they even help out with the finance. So depending on what kind of scale you're in, there may be different departments. It might just be a manager or an owner that fulfills those departments. Now, the mission, vision, and value statement should also be implemented in practice culture. Because when we go back and we look at things like guiding principles, we look at morals and values, that creates hospital culture. And your leader, your manager can make or break culture. We either call it negative or positive culture. And this is the social order of the practice. How do people communicate with each other? What kind of respect is held when communicating with each other? How are people's attitudes and behaviors? And how do people feel working here? How is the values? How is this clinic upkept? Does everyone share the same moralities as you? Right versus wrong? When you have good leaders that promote positive culture, good behaviors, good attitude, strong values, it will attract and retain talent. People are going to want to stay at that veterinary practice because it's a healthy environment. It's positive culture. They like being there. It's dependable. It's reliable. They know how people will act. It's mature. That is positive culture. With positive culture, you will have lower turnover rates because people are really happy and they will stay there for years and years and years when they're especially pleased with the culture. So again, positive culture, it's created with exceptional leaders. So when you have a leader, which hopefully your manager is a great leader or a hospital owner, clinic owner, they will implement and practice those mission, vision, and value statements. And they will also delegate responsibilities and empower employees at the same time, giving them their independence, not micromanaging them, giving them that freedom. When we do those things, when exceptional leaders implement that, it promotes things like open communication. People feel comfortable talking with one another and having those open conversations because it's a good environment. It's a positive culture. It promotes ingenuity. It promotes independence, accountability, productivity. People aren't going to be afraid to admit their mistakes. They feel comfortable where they're at. And they know even though they made a mistake, it's going to be okay. People are going to work with them. We're going to find a solution. And overall, the productivity is going to be so much better. People will be so productive because it's easy to work in an environment that has a great and good positive culture. It's enjoyable. You want to be there. And when we see good, positive culture, it'll also have positive effects on teamwork, which is created through positive culture. When people are happy in their jobs, they like where they work, the communication is strong, the teamwork will be strong. You're going to have pride in your team. You're going to be proud of that team. You're going to be able to communicate well with your team. You're going to know and understand others' priorities and what you need to do. You're also going to be able to be empathetic and compassionate to one another and support each other during difficult times and even problem solving together. Remember, you're working as a team. You can't do one thing without another person. You know, the receptionist, the technicians, the assistants, the doctors, the kennel techs, management, we all work together to make it work. So be aware of that. Get to know your team members. Be open and honest and be willing to make those good working relationships because who you work with is really important, especially to your mental health. I know, I did 10 years of clinical medicine working in many different work environments. And I can honestly say that some of the best friends that I've made in this life were coworkers from vet med. And the thing that's really beautiful about having good friends in vet med is being able to support each other during difficult times. If you have good relationships with those that you're working with, remember, we are working with animals in a medical environment. Most of the time when they come into the clinic, they're not feeling well. Maybe they're injured. Something happened. And it's not always easy. Sometimes it ends up in a euthanasia. Sometimes it ends up with a terminal illness or diagnosis or a debilitating injury, life-changing injury. Things like that can be really difficult. That might not be my animal, but I've watched that patient for years, or, you build that relationship with these animals and with these owners, and you will feel it too. That's a big part of compassion fatigue. And a big reason why people in the veterinary field face compassion fatigue is because we care and because we put our heart and soul into our work. So what I'm getting to with this is when you feel those things, when you're in the field and you see a patient that gets a terminal illness, or you see a patient that has to be euthanized, and you're feeling those feelings, it's a difficult time for you. Remember that other people are feeling that too. It's probably not just you. Talk with your coworkers, talk with the doctor that had to just euthanize that animal. Guarantee it's not just you feeling those feelings. And if you're able to confide in one another and talk to one another and comfort one another, that's huge. That is what makes it worth it. That is what makes this field. Because we don't just always see healthy, happy, cute puppies and kittens and all of that. We do sometimes, but support is huge. And let me tell you, y'all, I love my husband, but he does not understand veterinary medicine like my friends in vet med do. I can tell him about my day or tell him about what happened. He's not going to get it the way that some of my really good friends that were my coworkers get it, who have worked in that environment, that know that environment. So it's nice to have those people in your life. And it's nice to have and be close with team members that you can talk to about those things that literally completely understand where you're coming from. And it makes a really good team. Really good lifelong friendships too. There are people that I haven't worked with for many years. One of my best friends, actually, I met in Kentucky when I was working on racehorses on the track, and she's from South Dakota, and I live in Hawaii, and we are best friends. And we have been we worked together back in 2015. It's 10 years ago. So just be aware of that. And that's something that's a really beautiful thing about vet med. And I call her all the time still, and we'll talk about certain things and animals, and she gets it. And I'm excited for you guys to experience that too. It's a really awesome, harmonious thing that we get in the veterinary field, to share that passion, to share that compassion for the field and what we want to do together, and also be able to grieve together and be there for one another. Now, we want the hospital that you work at to be a psychologically safe environment. It should be safe for you to be. You should feel secure and mentally safe. And that all stems from positive culture. That all stems from good teamwork. It's a shared belief that the team is safe to take risks. So, for example, if you feel psychologically safe, you're going to feel safe enough to talk up about things, to speak up when things aren't right, and voice your opinion and share your ideas without fear of backlash. A safe environment is going to enhance how willing you are to engage, the inspiration and creativity of coworkers. When you feel safe in your work, it's going to improve your mental health because you're not going to have work-based anxiety. You're going to feel really comfortable and safe in your work environment. When people feel that way, they stay at those jobs. Employee turnover decreases. And it has to be exhibited. This safe environment, it takes everybody working together. It's not just the leader, but it's the team member, and it's integrated into the culture of the practice. And like I said, I'm not trying to scare you off. I've only ever worked at one clinic that was what I would deem not safe, not good. It wasn't great for me. And a lot of it had to do with, it started with the management. The manager of the clinic was the doctor's girlfriend, and she had never managed anything in her life. She had never worked in vet med. It was a recipe for disaster, y'all. And it was a really big bummer because I actually really liked the doctor. He was really knowledgeable, and he was an ER doc for a long time. I thought he was fantastic. He was a great vet. But because the management was so bad, it created a really toxic work environment where people gossiped and talked bad about each other, and there was really bad hierarchy, and it didn't feel safe. Psychologically safe, I would not have felt safe to say my opinions about things. I didn't want backlash. I didn't want people talking bad about me. Out of my almost 15 years, I've only ever had one hospital that felt like that. And let me tell you, I was able to quit that job and get a job in another hospital a week later. You've got options. Do not stay somewhere where you don't feel psychologically safe. Do not stay somewhere where you dread going to work. You should be going to work because you love it and it is safe for you and you want to be there. Examples. What does a safe environment look like? Well, here's some tips from the chapter. It says tips for fostering a psychologically safe work environment. So, and this goes back to everything that we've been talking about good leaders. Have good listening skills. Ask open-ended questions, getting to know people better. Promote mutual respect with everyone. Lead by example, acknowledge your mistakes, be willing to correct them, and be willing to also be receptive to feedback. Do something with it. Be approachable with that feedback. Show empathy and compassion. I feel like that's something that us as a human race has kind of lost a little bit over time. And partial of it is to blame of being on our phones all the time. You know, we see so many things and bad things happening. Do people really show empathy and compassion anymore? Dive deep into yourself. A big part about being in this field is being compassionate and showing empathy for those. You're in a medical field. You have to. And embrace being vulnerable. Embrace feeling those feelings and know that it's okay. Make it safe to make mistakes. Because let me tell you, I have made mistakes a few times in my career. They were always unintentional. Most mistakes are unintentional. If it was intentional, it would be considered malpractice. Although unintentional can result in malpractice, it happens. But it's how you go about resolving the issue that matters. Okay, I have messed up. I have misdosed a patient before. I gave a medication at a wrong time before. I misread a chart. I had worked a really long shift working with mares and foals on a foaling unit when I worked in Kentucky. It's like the end of like a 13-hour day. And I accidentally gave a medication early. And you guys, this was at like a very high stakes veterinary hospital, the biggest one in the United States. I was there for a paid internship program that I got accepted into, and I made a mistake. And I had been there for a while. I had been there, I was there for about 7 months. And it was like 3 months in, 3 or 4 months in. I had been there, done that. I was just really tired. I looked at the chart. I thought it said to give the medication at 6 p.m. It really said 8 p.m. I gave the horse the medication and I came back into the office to chart it, and I realized I made a mistake. So I was honest about it. Could I have been fired? Could things have happened? Sure. But you know what was worse? Is if that horse would have had a problem because I messed up, right? Like my patient's life is at hand here. Granted, let me just be really honest with you. It was an antibiotic. This was not going to kill the animal for giving it early. Things were okay. It was totally okay. They monitored me a little bit more after that and helped me, which is okay. I actually appreciated that because I was really young. It's like when I first started. I wasn't in the field for that long when I went there. So I actually really appreciated it, and they helped me get better with it. So it wasn't a bad thing. And I want to remind you that. Just remember, we all make mistakes. I have made a big boo-boo mistake like that before too. And because I was open and honest about it and told people right away, we were able to determine, okay, what happened? What kind of medication is it? Is this patient at risk? You know, we went through all the things and it was okay. It worked out. So again, you should know that we don't want to make mistakes. But if you do, you should feel comfortable enough to say that. Even working at a world-class hospital like that, was I scared? Yes. because they really didn't want to get in trouble. But I knew it was a psychologically safe environment. It was a learning environment. I was there on a undergraduate externship or internship, whatever they want to call it, to learn about working with horses on the track. This was something I was a student. So just know that it's really important and just know that it's okay. If you make a mistake, own up to it. Okay? Be honest, own up to it, share your side, see what you can do better. How can you improve it in the future? Again, remember that it's okay. It's not the end of the world. Most of the time, it's not that big of a deal. And always ask someone to double check you. That night, I totally should have had somebody double check me. I was way too tired. I was maxed. I should have had somebody double check me, and I didn't. I learned from that. Always had a double check after that for a little while. Okay, so getting back into our slides here, what are team member needs? So when a leader is looking at their team members, a few things that we have to fulfill. There's sense of purpose, leveraging, empowerment, and engagement. We're going to go into details of what these are in the next few slides. So, sense of purpose. Team members must find purpose in their work, or it's going to result in being burnout. And that's not what I want for you. We will talk about burnout later in this module, more like in week 3. And burnout happens when you have untreated compassion fatigue. And if you don't have purpose in your life, if you're just going through the motions, you don't really see a purpose or reason why you're there, it's a loss of meaning. You need to have purpose in your work. And you're all here in this program because you have a sense of purpose. You want to help animals. That's a purpose for you. You want to do this because it matters to you. So we want to make sure that people feel that in the field. You feel important. You see how your job is positively contributing to the practice. You have a sense of purpose in your work. When people have that loss of meaning kind of feeling, it comes from things like lack of control, lack of fairness, mismatched values, workload, lack of reward and recognition, poor work relationships. So all of these things, especially the last few here, how much a manager is putting on your workload, if you're not even being rewarded or recognized for doing good and you have poor working relationships, yeah, that's going to impact your job a lot. You might not feel like you have purpose in that job. What's the point of me being here? So we need to give that purpose. Team members need that. You will need that. Leveraging is also important too. So leveraging is to use every team member to the highest ability of their skill. Meaning that we should be training and investing in every team member. Again, if I'm really good at blood draws, then they should utilize me for those skills that I have. I'm good at blood draws and I'm confident at doing them. A good leader will say, hey, you're good at that. You like doing that. How about you train some other employees? How about you're our go-to person for blood draws? And we leverage your skill because you're good at it, you like doing it, and you feel empowered when you do so. It's a great way to help give that sense of purpose as well. At the same time, investing in helping you get better at your other skills, but leveraging is a great tactic to use. And remember, everyone's going to be good at different skills. Someone else might be really great at IV catheter placement, where you might not be so good. Or, somebody might be amazing at nail trims, where you're like, nope, I'm a little scared of that. I'd rather do an anal gland expression. Totally fine. We're all going to have our strengths and weaknesses, and that's the beauty. That's the beauty of it, and working with different people. Now, empowerment. Employees should feel empowered. It's essential to practice success. And this comes from encouraging and developing team members. We want to encourage team members in things like client communications, laboratory, patient treatment. We want to make sure that people feel good about doing their job. They're getting recognized for doing a good job, right? When somebody tells you like, hey, fantastic job on that, you did great, that acknowledgement of it is huge. That can cause somebody to absolutely take pride in their work, feel a satisfied feeling. They feel really great about it, motivated, they want to do more. Just a simple pick me up, right? Just a simple compliment, a well done. It's huge. Encouragement is huge in the world of leadership. Now, empowerment also comes from delegation. So when employees are allowed to do different job responsibilities or new job responsibilities, it can help give them those new skills and feel empowered about their work. You know, they're learning more, they're doing more, they're feeling really good about it. And a goal should be to allow the team member to manage themselves and not be micromanaged. So that's a really big part of empowerment. If your manager gives you a job role to do or to learn about that you're going to start doing, a way to empower you is to have a meeting about it, set a goal for it, and then maybe do some check-ins later down the road, but not constantly hovering over and making sure that you're doing it. Giving them that freedom will really help with that empowerment as well. It also shows that you have trust in that employee. You trust them to learn that new job duty and do it well. Because remember, and this is something that a lot of managers, I've seen managers fault in this way, where a lot of great managers that I've worked under they've either been in the field a long time, maybe they used to be a tech or they were assistant, but they've usually been in the field for 10 plus years, most managers. And it's so true. One person cannot complete all tasks within a veterinary practice. You must delegate tasks. If you take it all on by yourself, you are not going to be able to do it all. So delegation is great because it reduces things like stress and wasted time, but it also increases efficiency. It increases client relations and it increases patient care, right? If we're able to delegate our responsibilities and everyone has a good workload and we're not overloading one person while another person doesn't do much at all, if we're delegating and we're splitting up those job duties, people are going to be happier. Employees will be happier. Clients will be happier, and the pets will be happier too. But as a leader, learning to delegate can be difficult. Especially if you're new into being a leader or manager. I've met many people in my life, and I can even be one of them, and maybe you have felt this way too, where sometimes you just want to do something yourself because you know that you'll do it right. And it's not that you don't trust other people, but you're like, if I do it, I know I'll do it right. And the first time I don't have to correct anything. And yeah, I'm just gonna do it. A lot of leaders get stuck in that, where it's like, no, you need to learn how to delegate and trust other people and train other people. Yeah, no, I feel that. I have felt that quite a bit, even being an instructor. I'm like, yeah, I'll just do it. No, I'll just handle it. I'll just do it. I know I'm gonna do it right, so I want it done. I have felt that all the time. And I fight myself with that too, because it's like, no, I should delegate. I should help train other people how to use the online system and do things like that. So it's also learning how to delegate those responsibilities, but choosing the correct person to delegate to is the most important thing. I don't want to give a responsibility to somebody that I know is probably underqualified or might not be able to actually satisfy the need of that. I want to give it to somebody that I trust, that I know can get it done with minimal intervention needed. When you delegate your responsibilities, it allows members to develop an action plan, usually using something like SMART goals, which is talking about like measurable, attainable, reliable, time worthy. We're looking at those different factors when we're talking about SMART goals. And so a employee can look at, okay, well, I'm going to add this onto my job responsibility. This is what I'm going to do XYZ, to accomplish it within this time frame, and this is how we're going to measure those results. Again, a great manager will kind of take away the reins. They'll take their hands off the reins and they'll let that employee have more independence and complete those tasks more independently and just having checkpoint dates. That's one of the best ways to, again, empower your employees rather than them thinking, man, they gave me this job responsibility and they don't even trust me enough. They're hovering over me like a hawk, watching everything that I do. We don't want to be that way. We want to give independence. We want employees to feel that they can do their job right and we don't need to monitor them 24/7. Now, employee engagement. We want our employees to stay engaged. And the great thing about medicine, it's constantly forever changing and improving. My gosh, even just in the past 15 years I've been in this field, it has changed and improved so much. My goodness, we went from having dip tanks in dark rooms to develop films for radiographs or x-rays to now having full digital x-rays that automatically upload to a computer within seconds. I mean, that's wild to me. Same with like the computerized medical records. We used to be all paper, manila charts, manila folders, like that was it. It's almost completely all digital now. There's very few hospitals using paper records anymore. So keeping employees engaged by continuing their education is really important because, again, this field is forever changing, advancing, getting new methods and treatments and medications. So if we continue education, which means that you are keeping up to date with all of those updates, maybe you're going to a seminar, you go to a conference, maybe you do an online course like Fear Free or things like that. It could even be a sales representative coming into your clinic and doing what we call a lunch and learn. Those are my favorite. It's when we close the clinic down for like 2 hours during lunch and the representative buys everyone lunch and we learn about new products and food and things like that. We do that quite often. I had a hospital that we did that like almost every month and it was great. And it was awesome because one, yes, you get a nice lunch and it's fun to learn, but you got to learn about all of these new treatments and medications and help market them. And it's just so incredible to see the advancement of vet med and where we're getting to. It is just awesome. So that can really help keep people motivated and keep people engaged. Is by continuing your education and continuing and being updated with that in the field. Now, another thing that keeps people engaged is intrinsic motivation. And I've talked about this a little bit the past few slides. And intrinsic motivation is the desire to do things because they matter. You're doing this because it matters to you, right? All of you are here because this matters to you. Animals matter to you. You're not just here by chance, right? You have that motivation. I go to work in veterinary medicine because it matters to me, because I love it, because it feeds my soul. It gives me something that nothing's ever given me in my life. I don't just do it because I have to. That's extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation is like, I do this because I have to, right? I work my job because I have to make money, because I have to make rent, or I can't live. Versus intrinsic, well, I do this, yes, because I have to make money and live, but I ultimately do it because it matters to me. It's a little less about the money. It's more because it's what I want to do with my time. It feeds me. It gives me that satisfaction to do this job. And that also comes into, I know it's misspelled here, I apologize. Work-life balance. Work-life balance, having the balance between working and having a life after work. When y'all first get into the field, you're going to be super excited and you're going to want to work a lot and see all the things and maybe take all the overtime shifts because you'll make a lot of money. And that's great. I did that a lot when I was young. I worked like a dog. I worked so much because I loved it. And I wanted to learn more and I loved making more money. But caution, for this. You have to leave room for yourself. Having a life after work, having a time for your personal life, for your family life, for your friends, for sleep, for rest, for self-care. Really important for your overall mental well-being. You can't keep doing your job if your tank is on empty all the time. You can't keep giving more emotionally to your job if you have nothing left to give. You have to recharge yourself as well. That is a subject that we will dive much deeper into in more of like week 3, and what you can do to recharge yourself and make sure that you are ready. Now, one of the main goals of a leader is to retain their team members and attract new ones. We want this hospital to be such a great place to work that people stay working there and people want to get in and they want to work there. They hear such good things about being there. So just like what I was saying before, a little bit repetitive here, but it's tying back into being a good leader, leading the hospital well, letting people achieve their goals, positively reinforcing others, being a coach to your team members, not just a manager. And remember, when a practice has good culture, it's easy to attract team members. People will want to be there. You're going to feel it the second you walk through the door. It's a whole vibe. It's a whole change in environment. You really can feel it. And I recommend you trust your gut. Your gut will tell you things before your mind will. Your body will feel whether it's a safe environment for you or not. So I recommend that to you. Trust yourself. I remember when I took that job at that one toxic hospital, and I took it because the pay was higher than any other place, and I just wanted to make money. And I remember when I went in there for the interview, I felt kind of like, I don't know if this is a good fit, but they are offering me $2 more than the other hospital, so I'm going to take it. I wish I would have listened to my gut because it wasn't a good environment for me. Your body will tell you those kinds of things. Listen to yourself. Again, in your journey of becoming a more effective leader, some takeaways, right? High emotional intelligence, control over emotions. You appreciate things like diversity and inclusion. You're also going to ensure that you have a good work-life balance. Also ensuring that communication is clear with the team, providing feedback, being receptive to feedback, managing conflict well, and positively impacting people to lead that change. Baby steps here to get to that place where you do this automatically. Again, you have to retrain your emotional mind. You have to retrain yourself a little bit if you don't have these kinds of qualities, and that's okay. It's something you have to work towards. Again, I was not the leader that I am today 15 years ago when I first started in the field. It took a long time to develop myself and to grow into my adult life, into who I was, and to learn how to be a good person and how can I positively affect and be that change that the veterinary field needs. So again, as a recap, emotional intelligence ties into things like being self-aware, having self-control, having self-motivation to do things. And also not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. Demonstrate it. Be an empathetic person. Demonstrate practice values. Hold yourself to those higher standards. Evaluate how you react to other people. And evaluate the impact your action has on others. How do your emotions affect your team? How does your reactions to things affect the result? Like we were saying earlier, a client being combative and mean to me, I've got options on how I want to reply to them. And how I reply will impact the reaction, will impact how they reply back to me. How I handle this situation will completely change the trajectory of the result. with diversity and inclusion, something about this field that I want to talk about that is, not all fields are like this, fields of work. Veterinary medicine is really special because you can be in this field for your entire life. Okay, you can be in this field, from a very young age. I started in the field. I started doing veterinary medicine stuff long before I went to school. When I was 14 years old, I started helping the vet out and doing volunteering and stuff and wanting to learn more about animals and all that. So, and then there's doctors that work well into their 70s. So, yes, when I'm talking about diversity, I'm talking about things like race, ethnicity, ages, religion. But in this field, you are going to see a huge range of ages. And it's something that I actually really love a lot. And the reason why I love it is because it brings different perspectives. Everybody, depending on how old you are, when you were raised, the values you were raised with, the time that you were raised and lived in, has a huge effect on who you are. And here's the thing, although we may be different, when differences are appreciated and built on, inclusion occurs. It's okay to be different from somebody else. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, coming back to the generations in the workforce, we have 5 different generations now in the workforce. Okay, we have, actually, it's almost about to be 6. So we have veterans, we have baby boomers, we have Gen X, we have millennials, we have Gen Z, and then I think it's Gen Alpha is the next one. Probably not to the point where they're working in the field yet. But that's a lot. That is a lot. I mean, you're talking baby boomers, talking about people in their 50s, 60s. Veterans, I'm talking about people in their 70s. You will work with people that are in many different walks of life from you. Okay, you're going to work with a veterinarian that's a fresh grad, that's 29, 30 years old, and you're also going to work with veterinarians that have 40 years of experience and they're in their 70s, 60s, or 70s. Everyone's going to think differently, but we must learn on how to build on those strengths of each other to achieve these goals. And remember, you're going to learn a lot from everyone that you work with. You'll learn a lot from these new veterinarians fresh out of school with new advanced medicine and things like that. And you're going to learn a lot from your old school vets that practiced vet med in the 80s, in the 90s. It might be different between everyone. And here's one difference that I really noticed coming into the field. Okay, I didn't grow up with a lot of technology, not until I was a little bit later into my teenage years, getting into technology more. But I'm very proficient with it now. It's what I do on a daily basis. Everything is online. I'm very good with computers and technology. When I was in the field, I remember working at a practice where we were switching from paper charts to electronic charts. This has been something that's been happening in the veterinary field for like the past 15, 20 years. They've been slowly migrating everything over and getting into where we're all fully electronic. Y'all, it was easy for me. It was easy for me. It was easier for those younger generations that grew up with technology. No problem at all. But let me tell you, working with veterans, baby boomers, even Gen X, with that transition was hard. It was hard because they didn't grow up the same way. They didn't have technology available the same way. They were more apprehensive to the change than, say, I was, or people around the same age group that I was at the time. Do know that growing up in different times affects things like that. And there was nothing wrong with that. That's where our younger generation, we stepped in and we had the knowledge and we were able to train those that were, 40, 50 years older than us on how to use computers. It was a really cool experience, actually. Being able to actually be the master almost to teach those that were so much older than me. Really cool experience. Again, such a beautiful part of this field is you can be in this field for your entire life. And I've seen people that practice medicine and they stay in it until they're 60, 70 years old. And they do it because they love it and they don't want to retire because they love it so much. So something that you'll see, and it's a really beautiful thing, and it's something that I love a lot. And again, and if I'm ever referring back to old school medicine, I am kind of talking about our baby boomer vets. I love them. I worked with them a lot. But there is a huge difference between old school med and like new generation med. You will get to see this for yourself. Now, coming into our next topic here with communication, of course, communication matters, right? We've been talking about that really this entire lecture about how to communicate, how to think clearly, how to talk sparingly and listen intently. I love this soundbite here. Do you take the time to think before you speak? And I mean, really think about it. Do you take the time to say, you know what? Now's not the time for my reply. I'm going to sit back and listen. And I'm going to listen intently. I'm not going to scroll on my phone and act like I'm listening. No, I'm going to sit here and engage and listen to you. Communication isn't all about you talking. It's about also how you can be a receptive listener. You seek to understand where people come from. That ties into being an empath. You pay attention to things like the tone of your voice and forms of nonverbal communication. You know, if you're sitting there and you're like, well, I'm listening to you, but you're all closed off and you're like, oh, you act like you don't want to be here. That body language telling me right now that this person probably doesn't care about what I'm talking about. They don't really want to be here. So, almost why say more? So pay attention to how you are coming off to others and how effective your nonverbal communication can be as well. I don't know what it is. I've seen it a few times, but people don't quite understand sometimes how much your nonverbal communication can speak huge volumes. I'll give you an example. I have seen it a few times where it hasn't necessarily happened to me, but it's happened to others in the teaching community where the teacher will ask the student to do something and the student rolls their eyes. Like, oh, I'm so over this. Just something as simple as that, right? You might just think it's like, well, that's just me expressing myself. That kind of nonverbal communication, oh my gosh, you are sending huge signals of the I don't care about being here kind of vibes. It's not a way that you want to come off. Pay attention to how that affects how you communicate and use it sparingly. Use that nonverbal communication sparingly and think about it before you use it. And think about how that may come off to somebody else, especially somebody that's like a teacher or a manager who's in a leadership position compared to you. Does that come off like you're a good team player? Things to reflect on. Clear communication is essential. No matter where you go, no matter what you do, whether it's your professional or your personal life. With communication comes with being okay with feedback. You're not always going to be happy in your job, okay? I'm not here to tell you it's all roses and daisies and happy times. Even in good environments with positive culture, there can still be conflict. There can still be miscommunication. There can still be problems. But how do you address the conflict? How do you turn it into a growth opportunity? How do we learn from this? How do we do better from this? Being a good leader is being almost like a coach and mediating this situation. We don't want it to feel scary or turn people off from addressing issues. We want people to feel comfortable about it. And sometimes that means as a leader, sometimes that means you need to formally sit down and do a mediation with people. Sometimes it just means it's an informal conversation with somebody. It depends on the infraction. It depends on what's going on. It depends on the conflict. Not every conflict needs to be addressed in a very formal way. Not everything needs to be a sit-down meeting. Again, that's learned with time and experience. When you manage the conflict, again, practice managers, they're usually a mediator, so that they can see both viewpoints, and we want to have a conversation about it. We're not arguing. We want to find a resolution. We want to see, okay, what happened? Who's accountable? How can we move forward from this? Again, conflict is still going to happen, even if you work in a good environment, but it's how you move on from it, and it's how you manage it better. So last slide here for chapter 2. Last slide. I was already lightly talking on this earlier with looking at the different diverse age groups that we work with. But to come into this subject, a challenge that leaders can face is things with change management, right? We're changing things, we're innovating, we're trying to improve and make things better, but people can be resistant to change, right? Those older doctors, we're transitioning from paper to electronic. They were resistant to that change, man. They did not want to change. They did not want to do it. I remember one of my favorite doctors ever. He's retired now. But I remember him very clearly saying, well, don't fix what's not broke. Our system is not broken. Why would we switch and go through all of this, trouble of switching to an online system if ours works just fine? But that's the thing. It was working just fine. It wasn't very efficient. It wasn't using team member time well. It was honestly wasting money for the practice, keeping in those old methods. It's okay for people to be apprehensive to change. Okay, that doctor had been doing it that way for years, 20, 30 years at that point. Of course he didn't want to change. Like, why? Know that change can be necessary to be successful. So if ever implementing change, it should be more like a discussion. It shouldn't be like, this is what we're doing and end of story. It should be more of a discussion. It should be open. There should be provided essential training for everybody. A big reason why people are change resistant is because they are worried about the training that they're going to have for it. They don't feel like there's enough communication with it, and they don't understand it enough. Right? They don't have the information, and maybe it's personal. Maybe they're like, I don't want to change it. Right? This is how our practice always has been. It's normal to see that. But again, being a good leader is saying, hey, I know we've always done it this way, but it could be more efficient and it could be better if we did it this way. Challenging that status quo. All right, students, we are all done with chapter 2. For becoming a leader, I will stop the recording now.